Regiment here, and you're listening to Travelling the Vortex.
My name is Stephen Thorne. Tangents ahead. Travelling the Vortex.
Travelling the Vortex.
All right, well, welcome back. This is our third update from, where are we at? Gallifrey 1, the big Doctor Who convention. And I'm Glenn.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Mel. I'm Chrissy.
And we want to tell you about our day. This is our first really kind of full day here as a team here. And what you guys think of today?
Overwhelmed.
No, it was a lot of fun. Like we were doing, I got to do cosplay today, which last night I wore it for a little while. I wore my costume. I was the Fifth Doctor girl, or Femme 5, or whatever they call it. And, I mean, I've never really cosplayed before. I just thought it would be fun. And I wore it last night a little while, and during opening ceremonies, and it was just hot. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to wear this and, all day and die. So I kind of toyed with the idea of not wearing it at all. And then I met up with a friend of mine who was dressed as a Femme 10, and she was all, and I was telling her, oh, I've got this costume. I'm like, oh, you should go wear it. So I ran upstairs, changed, went back downstairs, and it was just so much fun that everybody would stop me and say, oh, that's a really cool costume, or I want to take your picture. And so now I'm like on people's Twitter feeds and all those different things. And I actually got to be in, they had the cosplay hall, and somebody came up while we were standing in line to say hi to Daphne Ashbrook, and this girl, she was dressed up as the Master, and she's like, oh, we're doing this, she called it a royal flush, but it was actually, it was like a suit of cards in Doctor Who characters, and it was 2 through 10, and then you had Ace, and then Captain Jack was the Jack, and then Romana was the Queen, and then the Master was the King. And so we all just kind of stood in a line in front of this backdrop of the classic TARDIS. So they had the classic TARDIS and the David Tennant TARDIS backdrop, but we did the classic because that's what I was. And I got a picture with a Perry and a Tegan, which those are the only two cosplayers as the Fifth Doctor's companions. I've seen a lot of Fives. I haven't seen...
Didn't see any Turlos.
No Turlos.
Yeah,
No Turlos.
That would have been kind of cool.
I'm kind of surprised. I did see an Adric.
You did see an Adric?
I did see an Adric. And
okay.
I went,
Oh, that's too bad. And but I was kind of surprised that Mark Strickson is at this con, and there's no Turlos. I thought that was kind of weird.
I've seen a bunch of Jamies, which, that's great, but no Turlos. And I'm like, that's sad.
Well, there are two things here with this part of the story that I think are kind of cool. First of all, and Mel cosplayed for a little bit yesterday in her Happiness Patrol outfit, and we got stuck, 20-some times. Mm-hmm. Which is, for Happiness Patrol, that's kind of a big deal because people recognize that one. I mean, that's kind of an obscure little thing, and people stop. Oh, wow, okay, cool. So that was kind of cool. But we went back in there and took pictures with her in front of the backdrop. So when Chrissy got us back in there today, and if you're not in costume, you don't get into that room. Yeah. Period. They just that you don't get in. But because we were with people dressed up, we got into the room, which is kind of cool to be able to take those photos of them dressed up and see kind of what goes on in that chaos behind the scenes in the costuming department, which I think is pretty nifty. So it's kind of cool that we got to see that aspect of it.
Yeah, I did get a picture. Like yesterday, my big goal, I saw a bunch of people dressed up as there was the Delgado Master and the John Sim Master and the Ainley Master. I'm like, I need to find someone who's an Ainley Master and get a picture with them. And I did find somebody, and that was great because. And the picture I got, I'm like grinning like an idiot, and he's smiling, like, oh, I'm gonna get into some kind of big trouble or something. So I was like, this is cool.
Was that the one I took?
That's the one you took. Yeah.
Was that last night?
This was today.
Oh, okay.
I saw Masters yesterday, and I thought that would be cool if I got in my costume if I got a picture, an Ainley Master.
Okay. Because I thought. I thought that happened today, but maybe everything's just running together.
No, it happened today. It happened today.
A lot of stuff's running together today.
It is,
yeah. So, well, why don't you two guys talk about the panels that you were in?
Yeah, well, the first panel we were on was...
The Trial of the Time Lord.
I'm glad you said it, because I was about to say Good Man Goes to War again, and I know that's not right. Trial of the Time Lord, and...
All of the panels are named after episode titles, which... on the surface makes absolutely no sense because you look at the panel and you're like, I have no idea what this is about.
Yeah.
But then when you delve into the back and you look up the programming, it's like, oh, that kind of makes sense. So The Trial of the Time Lord was about the Doctor and his evolution as a character and the different personality traits that different actors have brought to it. We didn't stay on topic with that.
Well, I think we did, because I think, like we were saying earlier when we were talking off mic, it's a broad enough topic that I don't think we strayed off topic. I don't think the questions were directed the way that they probably should have gone for necessarily that panel. But everybody enjoyed it. That was what blew me away.
Who was asking those questions?
First of all, I come to opening ceremonies yesterday, and
Yes,
my plane was late because we were delayed on the tarmac because we hit a bird. And so, well, we didn't. They hit a bird before I loaded the plane, but anyway.
On the tarmac?
So I'm late. No, apparently it was in the air on the way, but we're sitting on the tarmac because they hit a bird. All right. And I get here, and I sit down, and I miss the primer panel, which is you go there and you kind of find out how to be on a panel. But Shaun got to go to that, so he just was filling me in. So we're in the middle of watching Radio Free Skaro and the Ambassadors of Death, which is the kind of the quasi kickoff to the whole convention. And Shaun goes, "Oh yeah, by the way," and he flips through his book and he points, and it says, "This is our panel, and next to my name is moderator." And so I'm like, oh, no. So he explains to me that they got there, and you said that some people came up and said, it says I'm moderator, and they didn't even know they were. So he flipped through hurriedly to make sure we weren't moderators.
That was why I cued into it, is because somebody commented, was like, so you're on a panel, surprise. And everybody was like, yeah, I got an email. And half the room turned and went, oh, you got an email? Because we didn't until you'd said something. It was when Galley posted the official listings. That's how we found out.
Right,
we got no notification at all that this was happening. So then,
I'm glad I saw it then.
Yeah, well, we are too. And then in that particular thing, when it said, this is you just check, and I found out I'm a moderator today. Flip, 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 flip. I'm safe. Oh, poor Glenn.
Yeah, so I go into this thing knowing that I'm going to have to kind of drive this panel, which I think I did a pretty good job at the beginning, and it kind of derailed from there. But no, it was a lot of fun, and I think it was a lot of fun, and I hope we brought some intelligent conversation to that room. Here's the amazing thing is, we get up there on this stage, and I had been glancing into and set in on a couple of panels, and they weren't empty rooms, but they weren't full. Some of them were about half full. I think the one we sat on before ours was probably about 2/3 full.
2/3 full,
yeah.
And these are not. This is not the gargantuan.
No, there's not these big ballrooms.
Yeah.
No, these are little convention rooms, is what they are.
This is a program A,
right? They're little program rooms. And so we go up and sit on the stage, and because we're supposed to be there a few minutes early, so we go up and sit on the stage, and I see people filing in and filing in and filing in, and that entire room filled up, and there were still people, they're coming in, and they were standing at the back of the room.
Yep.
And I thought, oh my gosh, what did we get into? So we've got a room full of people. I mean, it was almost like they came there to see us. It was kind of cool. Yeah. No, well, that's what I imagined.
And then Glenn looked out at the crowd and went, hi.
I did. I was like, wow, there's a lot of people here.
I recorded it. It was awesome.
And I welcomed everybody to Inspector Spacetime panel. And here's the funny thing: is I did that. I wanted to open with a joke, and so I did that. I said, welcome to Inspector Spacetime panel. Haha, no, just kidding. In that moment of welcome to Inspector Spacetime panel, I see out of the corner of my room the room guy that's in charge of making sure that we don't go over and all that stuff, looking at me like, what? And so I had to hurriedly go, no, just kidding, you're in the right place, that kind of thing. And he just kind of went, turned around and walked outside. So, I'm
sure the galley staff, some of them are probably under a lot of stress, so he probably didn't add to their sense of well-being.
Because this guy's been managing lines all day long.
Yeah.
And here I am making a joke, and he's like pissed. But anyway, so no, I think that one went well. And actually, when I got in there, I thought, okay, I get to moderate, so I'm going to kind of ask some of the questions that I don't have to really talk that much, because I'm pretty good around the four of us, or 5 of us, or whoever behind a mic when I don't see the people. But I'm not really that great on stage in front of people. So, but I thought, okay, this will be good. I don't have to talk too much. You guys can do all the talking. Which our 8th Doctor, John, who was on our panel, he was fantastic.
He was great.
Gosh,
he
did
was
great stuff.
Excellent.
Really enjoyed him. But
and John's hanging on my wall at home.
Yeah.
Is he the guy that
He's
was
the guy that's in
That's
our...
the one I thought was a mannequin?
Yeah.
Okay.
He kind of does look like a mannequin. I can see that.
Yeah.
Because when we were here last year, we got our picture with the TARDIS console, and you could have an option of, do you want somebody with you or just by yourselves? And the other options were there's somebody dressed as the Master in his Time Lord regalia, and then there's a Grace. And it was like, if we're going to have anybody, I want the 8th Doctor. And Mel kind of went, yeah, I want him too, because he looked so good in that. I mean, he's got a great costume.
He was.
Yeah.
He looks fantastic.
He's wearing it again today, but so it was kind of cool. It's like, dude, you're hanging on my wall at home. And he goes, I don't think that's creepy.
Yeah,
I'm not stuffed. I was like, no, you're in our picture of the TARDIS console. He goes, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I went up to him afterward and I asked him, like, do you have a blog or something? Because he had some really great ideas, and I'm like, I want to like see what else you have. And so he's what did he say? Oh, he does fan films on YouTube. I can't remember what they were, but I wrote it down so I can search it.
Keith will look this up, and we'll put the show notes.
It'll be in the show
Okay.
notes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I don't have to worry about this.
No, it's all Keith.
It's all Keith.
It's all Keith's responsibility now.
But
You
anyway,
like how we volunteered you for that, Keith?
I felt like that panel went pretty good. I didn't. It's one thing to sit on stage and be in it, but did we do okay?
Yeah, I thought you guys did. I thought the whole thing was really good discussion, and people talked. They had comments from the audience, and there
moved.
there
did.
was
It moved
one
right
guy.
along.
I think there was one guy sitting right next to me in a 7th Doctor outfit. He had a question, and I should have asked him what his question was, because I'm like, I'll talk about it, but I didn't.
What I have decided from this, though, is when we record our podcast, to keep them on time, I'm going to have a guy standing outside the door, and he'll come in and tell me when it's 5 minutes, and then he'll come in and tell me when it's wrap.
You have that now, and you don't pay any attention to it. You have that, you try to pay attention to it, and I go, I'm not paying any attention to Glenn, I'm not done with my point yet.
So then later in the afternoon...
Hold on one second. Now, while
No,
we were
go
doing
ahead,
this,
go ahead.
Mel was off doing autograph hunting, and who were you? You were hunting down somebody specific. I don't remember now what it was. Because you didn't come to the first panel, right?
No. I was, I don't know.
Well, she was getting
Oh.
autographs and bumpers, and I mean, she was
That's
hunting
what
everything down
she
for us.
She went and hunted down Stephen Thorne, and you got his.
Oh, that's right.
You got Omega's
Yeah.
autograph.
Oh, yeah, and secured a little something special that hopefully we'll divulge later.
So yeah, Mel was a trooper because she was working for the Vortex.
She was
She
Vortex
was.
PA. is
I
what
was
she
getting
was.
autographed. Who
Well,
was
she's-
the first one?
She was also adding to her ribbon stash.
Yeah, she certainly was.
Here.
Yeah. No. Well, I got to talk about Freema standing, because we came back from breakfast, and I was like, well, what am I going to do till 11? Because I wanted to go to your panel. I was like, what should I do? And I go into the dealer's room. I was like, oh, Freema's here. So I go out and look for the line, and now they had it where they did this really cool thing, but I didn't realize it at the time. Is like the line went out the door and then it stopped. I'm like, oh, this must be the end, because there was actually somebody at the end of the line with one of those "this is the end of the line" signs. Like, oh, is this the line for Freema? And he's like, oh yeah, but you got to go out that way. So I look out by the door. I'm like, oh, okay. And I see a few people. So what they did is they like split it up so people can go down the hall and there's still a line. And then they just have somebody say, okay, you need 4 more, go that way. So I get back there, back to the door, and it winds out the door and kind of around the courtyard. Now this was like 10 after 10, so I'm like, well, I'll stand in line and it should go pretty quick, maybe, I hope. And so I get down back to the back of the line, and I mean there were things to do and people to see and talk to, and there was one guy, he had like a homemade Dalek, or life-size Dalek made out of cardboard and styrofoam. It was like
I didn't see that.
No, I got pictures of it. It was like a Halloween costume for his son a few years ago, and his son was there, and they were like putting it all together and getting the kid in there, and they were going around having people actually autograph the Dalek, which is pretty cool. So anyway, so I got there at 10 after 10. By the time I got up to where Freema was to get my picture signed, it was 10:45. So I was only in line for like 35 minutes.
That's not bad.
It's not bad at all.
No, especially for Freema. I thought,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to be like clear down the street, and no, it was great. And she was just sweet as all get out. So, and I did not make an idiot of myself today. I got three autographs. I got Freema, Mark Strickson, and Sylvester McCoy, and I was on my best behavior.
Maybe we should have warmed you up. Instead of sending you to Jamie first.
Yeah.
Well, she got it all out of the way. She could.
That's
true.
Yeah.
But
So-
Jamie's the one you wanted to get, Shaun.
Yes,
So.
yes, I did. Now, if I can corner him like tomorrow or something, and get just a picture with him, it'd be good.
So then in the afternoon we did, I had another panel, which was the, I don't know what that means. 15. I got you. Okay. So I had a Trial of the Time Lord panel. No, that was the one we already did. I had Evolution of the Daleks. That's just it. This one seems to be the most obvious, though. Evolution of the Daleks.
Evolution of the Daleks.
What
What's
it
it about?
was kind of the evolution of the Daleks
Daleks.
through the series, through the entire run of the show. And I thought that was pretty good. And I think it was nice to have done the first panel because I think I was a little more relaxed
You were a lot
and
more
loosened
relaxed
up
in the second one,
and was less afraid to talk in that one. So
Well, you weren't running it either.
exactly, that's true. And I
too.
think that panel actually felt a lot better for me as far as conversationally because I think we stayed, I think, a little more on topic. I think we kind of strayed a little bit and probably went a different direction than probably was intended for that one as well. But I thought everybody on that panel was pretty good. The girls were they had a different approach. I don't want to say that they did bad because they didn't, but they had a different approach, and I thought that was kind of nice to have the variety on the panel of perspectives on the Daleks and whatnot.
And that was,
so that was a lot of fun.
That, Mel, unfortunately, was off. She was in line. She decided she was going to jump in line because she wanted Ben Browder's autograph. Well, we both wanted Ben Browder's autograph. And they were already lining up for Ben Browder. That panel was at 2.
Yes.
Yep.
And Ben Browder wasn't supposed to autograph until 3.
3.
And they were already in line. She's like, I'm not sorry, I'm going to be here. I was like, okay, I'm going to go listen to Glenn's thing. So then we got out of the... And that one's packed. You went to that one too, didn't you, Chrissy?
I went to all of them.
That one was packed as well,
Yeah.
and standing room only, and people standing in the back. And you had a guest.
Yes. Oh, that was so cool. Now they warned us. I don't know if you
did
guys
they
knew
warn
that.
you? No,
they
didn't
came
warn
up.
us
They
at all.
came up and said, "Okay, well, the Dalek's going to come in about 2 minutes or so into your panel. So when you guys get started, so yeah, we had a heads up
Well,
that it was
Thank
coming.
God they
but-
warned you.
Yeah, well, it was funny because you guys were talking about the Daleks, and we could hear it out. I could hear it out in the hall, and I was just laughing because I'm like, "Hey, it's out in the hall!" And you could hear it going, "Exterminate" and everything. And then it comes in the door, and we're just like, "Oh my gosh, it's the Dalek!" And I was like, "Oh, okay, well that makes sense."
So, but it was a nice surprise because that's what
Yeah,
I went.
it
When we
was-
heard they were doing it, we thought, "Well, that'll."
Well,
be
because
really
I
cool.
saw that Dalek. There were a couple other Daleks just kind of wandering up and down the
Tiki.
hall. The Tiki
Tiki was
Dalek,
there.
Tiki Dalek, yeah.
and I could, you hear them doing the voice and stuff. And like, oh my gosh, it's outside in the hall. So it was pretty cool. And then it would like react to different things. Well, there were a couple of different jokes you guys. Or a couple of different comments you guys would make, and then it would turn around and like
It just
glare
kind of look
you.
at us and
kind of look at you.
I didn't catch the first time until somebody kind of pointed over, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot you're here."
The first thing you guys said was something very complimentary to the Daleks about the fact that they are scary, and the eye stalk's nodding.
yes.
And then you said something else about, well, these aren't scary because they can't do this, and it went... Which is, if a Dalek, you wouldn't think a Dalek could glare. This thing glared. And we should throw out I don't remember, it's Nigel. It was his Dalek.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Nigel's.
It was Nigel's Dalek, and Nigel. We met Nigel last year, Gal, and he's great. He's a lot of fun. But Nigel's got a very cool thing. I don't know if you noticed this from up there. Nigel brings the Dalek every year, and he has the guests sign the armor.
No. Remember what Nigel said? He goes, it wasn't his idea.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's just, he says, out of the blue, these stars, guest speakers, whatever, just sign it, and they think it's really cool to sign on these plates. I have to replace every single one of them every year, he says.
Every year, apparently, yes. But they do. They had signatures of everybody that had been there so far.
That's actually pretty cool, though.
On the armor plating, and then apparently he has to go and replace them. But
Does he keep the armor plate?
Oh, yeah, I would hope so.
yeah.
He didn't seem put off by it, but it was just like, it wasn't his idea, and he says, but I have to replace every single one of them.
I guess Daleks that you want to go up and sign aren't that scary.
Yeah.
They mentioned special weapons Dalek in the panel, so I was happy.
We did. I applauded too.
Yeah, I did.
That was a good one.
I was happy with that.
I was really surprised. That was something that surprised me. Is that the mix of people at the first panel we did, the Travel Time Lord, was fairly. I think it was most of the crowd had been introduced to through New Who, but had gone back and started watching some old Who. Your panel was, I don't know, probably 90%, if not more, New Who fans.
Yeah.
That didn't have that backstory, because when they're talking about some of the classic Dalek episodes, we talked about.
The Chase.
Thank you.
Power of the
Start
Daleks.
throwing them out, because I don't remember any of them now.
Day of the Daleks.
Day of the Daleks, Death of the
Death
Daleks,
Daleks.
The Chase, Power of the Daleks. the R one that I can't ever...
Reverence.
Revelation.
Reverence of the... I just came up with another one.
They're asking, have you guys seen these? And only like 4 hands went up.
Well, who was it?
Really?
I can't remember who it was, but maybe it wasn't in that panel, but somebody was saying we've got like Revelation of the Daleks was a really underrated story, and he made like a couple different comments. I'm like, now I want to go back and watch that again because I've only seen it once when you guys reviewed it, but I was just like, oh my gosh, that's a different. I like that. I like whatever his interpretation was. Now I can't even remember it, but I just remember sitting there going, I really like how you were talking about how maybe dark it was and not so.
His point was that everybody talks about, Colin Baker was the guy that ran around in the clown suit and everybody makes fun of it. But that particular Dalek story is the darkest Dalek story that there really exists in the run of the story.
That's what it was.
I thought the same thing. When he pointed that out, I thought, yeah, it really is. And I even did that too. I thought, that's one I really need to go back and watch again because even though we've just recently reviewed it, it's just. It's one of those ones that it takes a different turn on the story, on the Dalek story, and kind of has some really dark elements to it. So.
And it's funny because like Resurrection of the Daleks and Remembrance of the Daleks, everybody knows that those are dark stories, like high body count, and the Doctor goes to a really not a dark place, but a place you don't usually see him go.
Uncharacteristic for the Doctor.
Yeah. But then in Revelation, I mean, he does the same thing pretty much, but nobody really talks about it because it's Colin Baker and he's in the goofy coat.
Right, exactly.
And it's kind of unfair. So I was like, I really got to go back and watch that with that in mind. Yeah.
Real quick backflash. The first panel, the guy, did you... I thought I could feel you on my end of the table squeeing when he was talking about how to canonize... Peter Cushing.
Yes.
No.
Oh, that was
good.
It was John. John brought that up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't his idea. He said he talked to somebody earlier in the day or yesterday about that was cool.
Do you want to tell it?
You'll probably do a better job than I did. But the idea is that the 10th Doctor, that was the 10.5 as he called him, that was left with Rose in the alternate universe at the end of. That's not Parting of Ways. What's the
Journey's End?
Journey's End. No, it's not Journey's End.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
No, Journey's End is the.
No,
yes, it is
Journey's End is the finale.
That's at the end of Donna's season. Oh,
yeah, that's
the one.
season.
At the end of Journey's End, the 10.5 that gets left behind is Cushing's Doctor, and that's that he becomes he grows old because he can now, and he has children. And so it would make sense that he would call one of them Barbara because he traveled with Barbara and thought that would be honorable to give her the name. And one of them is Susan. And so he traveled. He traveled with his granddaughter. His name was Susan, so that she's named after her. And I went. Blew my mind. I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, someone else was like, well, they don't have this and this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, he's in an alternate universe. You can do anything with
they
that.
said, well, how come it's set in the 1960s? And I wanted to say, I defy you to find a place in the film where they tell you what year it is.
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
No.
That's one of the great... We haven't got to it yet. Mel's kind of sitting here staring off into space.
But obviously one takes place in 2050.
Yeah, one's 2150. I haven't seen either of those anyway, but I know what you're talking about.
There are 2 Peter Cushing movies where Peter Cushing plays the Doctor, but he's human. I mean, he's just an inventor.
And his name actually is Doctor Who.
And his name actually is Doctor Who. There's a lot of things wrong with
it's Susan Who and Barbara Who and...
Yeah, but so he's not a Time Lord. He just invented this TARDIS. But if we're using this and we go by the deleted scene... where the Tennant's Doctor gives the other one, 10.5, a piece of the TARDIS and says they're grown, you can grow your own TARDIS, then that would make sense that he still, built this time machine and could do all these wonderful things. And so it's a really cool idea, I think, to kind of help bring those into the fold. Even though it's still alternate universe, I don't care. It kind of helps. Now if we can figure out Shaka Doctor.
Yeah. Still working on it.
Okay.
Well, that 8th Doctor novel... Can't remember what it's called.
It's the one where he looks into the mirror. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, and he sees all these different
versions
what
of
could have been sort of thing. So I accept it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because even Curse of Fatal Doctors get included in that as well. So
it all works out, guys.
But then later on, I didn't do much between except for just get a few autographs and whatnot. But next big thing was probably your panel then, right?
Yeah, we did get when we came out of the dialect panel. I walked past Mel. I was like, "So you ready to go do something else?" And she's kind of looking at me, going, "I'm still in line."
Oh,
still?
Yeah. Oh, you're
well, yeah. He
still
doesn't
around,
start till
yeah.
3 something, and I think it was 3:30.
It was 3:30 because Ben Browder had he was on a panel. His panel didn't get out until 3 o'clock. So I'm not quite sure why they thought they should do his autograph session at 3. But by the time his handlers, I mean, because that's kind of rude of a star or guest speaker or whatever you call them, to go from one place to another and not have a break in between. So they gave him, they let him have a break. Let him have a break. So by the time he got in there and got the doors, well, I mean, Ben Browder wasn't the only one in there either.
Yeah, no, the autograph.
He was sitting in a room with.
Well, we had Neve Campbell, we had Lisa Bowerman.
Neb McIntosh.
Or McIntosh.
McIntosh. Campbell.
That's Neb Campbell.
Yeah,
Neve
I knew where I went with that one.
Judy was in.
The costume designer was in there. Philip Hinchcliffe was in there. Get his autograph. And I'm squeaking. You can't hear me on the radio, but I'm squeaking.
He's jumping up and down on his butt cheeks. Yes.
And how much was all in that?
But
free.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Ben Browder wasn't, but everybody
else
was free.
Now, I mean, you could like they have the directors in there as well. It's like they had photos of this, kind of like that one that I've got that behind the scenes one. If you wanted the photo, you had to pay for it.
Right.
Because obviously they have to pay for those photos. But if it's just, hey, can you sign my program book or something like that, and off you go. So
Awesome.
Yep.
I had Philip Hinchcliffe, and I told him, I was like, you are directly responsible for what is, still one of my favorite
Seeds of
seasons
Doom.
of Doctor Who, and that's got Terror of the Zygons. And he asked, well, which one? I was like, I'm fuzzy with the numbers, but it's got Terror of the Zygons, it's got Brain of Morbius, it's got Seeds of Doom, which is probably my all-time favorite show, and he was not. So it was cool to get to talk to him for a little bit. And then we got Ben Browder's autograph.
it was set up in like a U shape to where you start at one point and then you went around the horseshoe and out. And Ben Browder was the last one on the sign, and he had 2 handlers. One to give you a ticket to mark down how many pieces that you were getting autographed, because if you presented more, you weren't going to get more. And he was the most expensive one that I had to pay for. We paid $40 for him. So,
wow,
yeah. Freeman was $30. He was $40. We were standing in line with a couple who. It was so funny because this older couple, she was like, "I know him from Farscape, but then he moved over to Stargate." And so I can't figure out which one I want. And then the guy, one of the staff workers, came out and said he's charging $40 for whatever you sign, whether it be Farscape, whether it be Stargate, whether it be your own, whatever you want, $40 a pop. And she's like, I'm not paying $80. And I was like, look what I got. And I whipped out my picture, and I had combined his 2 Farscape and his Stargate pictures and put them on one. She goes, I want one. I was like, I only have this one, lady. This is mine.
Forward thinking.
We think next year we're going to... We're going to start developing our own. I'm going to let Mel go nuts on the Photoshop, and then we'll set up a shop in the dealer's room and sell our own photos.
She was
Pay for the trip. Pay for the trip.
She was totally willing to buy my photograph of me. I was like, no, it's mine.
Well, next year you'll know.
Yeah.
So we'll put a couple extra and see what we can do.
Yeah, so by the time we got into get his autograph, it was 3:30.
Yeah, because while we were, I don't know what in one of the panels or whatever else we were doing, because you also did Martha earlier today. You stood in that line.
Oh, that's what I did earlier. Because
That's right. Yeah.
That's what I did with your guys' first panel, or your together panel, was Martha. Because it took me.
You didn't get the half hour. You got
I got an hour and 15 minute wait for hers.
I got there right after it opened, so.
Yeah, see, I think you were in the front of the line. I was in the back of the line. Because I was out on the sidewalk, I think.
So then the next big thing would have been the Good Man Goes to War panel, which we didn't have nearly the crowd that the other two pulled in. But
guess who you were going up against?
We were scheduled opposite Sylvester McCoy, who was in the main programming room A. So we were still, I don't know, probably half full?
Half full, yeah.
Half full.
Which is impressive.
Which is still impressive for that.
Going up against Sylvester McCoy, it's very impressive.
Yeah.
and it was moderated by Chip from over at 2 Minute Time Lord.
He did a great job.
He was awesome.
He's done this. He's done this before.
This is not Chip's first rodeo.
No.
He's done. Well, he moderated the podcaster panel that I went to last year.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of knew what to expect from him, and he did a normal great job. And apparently he didn't mind sitting on a panel with me because he said I did a good job afterwards. So
even after I ran up and hugged him.
Even after I ran up and hugged him.
Did he remember it was you?
I'm sure he did.
Oh yeah, no, Shaun.
Well, because I tweeted, it's like I think I creeped him out. Sorry, Chip. And he replied, "Don't worry about it."
So how'd the panel go? Pretty good.
The panel went pretty good. We had, Chip being the moderator never really came down and put his official stamp on which end of the spectrum he came down on.
Mm-hmm.
Having listened to his podcast, I think he's a pretty big fan of the way Moffat's doing things.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was evident in the way he talked.
Yeah. Well, I know he's like, him and his wife are really big into the Russell T Davies era, but he's been really fair to Stephen Moffat, which I
Supportive,
appreciate.
I think, yeah.
I appreciate a lot, because there's some RTD fans who are just like, no, you can't do Moffat at all. So
Yeah. We had one guy who was supposed to have been the devil's advocate, but I don't think he really got the opportunity to kind of present his argument. So I'm looking forward. I gave him my email address and told him after Gally was over to kind of send me his dissertation, because I'd be interested in reading it.
He was the fantasy writer, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't remember his name.
I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting cross section on that panel, because it had you and the other guy who were like kind of the fanboys, and then there was then Chip was moderating, and then there was the one lady who she's like kind of in the industry, and then about show running and producing, and getting ratings and getting budgets and all that kind of stuff. So she brought that in, and then there was the fantasy writer guy who was supposed to be devil's advocate, and I'm like, that's a really good cross section of people to discuss something like this.
And Man with a Box podcast, I can't remember his name either, but he was the fanboy, the other fanboy,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
But one of the more interesting, I mean, we talked a lot. We talked about the romance elements and how they're different, and is Moffat's era darker than what has come before, and is it more fairy tale, and how does he write female characters? That came up, and so we talked about a lot of different things. But I think probably the most interesting question was the last one that Chip asked me, and I was not prepared for this at all. He says, lightning round, is Moffat a better writer or showrunner?
Right.
We'll start down here with Shaun. I was like, I need some time. That's the other thing I've discovered with panels. Your position in the Dalek panel, you were on the left end of the table. Start there, man. If you get to pick your seat, you pick that seat every single time. Because they kind of go down the line.
right.
They go right to left.
They go
and
right.
you get more time to think about stuff. That right-hand seat's tough.
Well, you'd think so, because that's where you sat in our first panel, was at that end of the table that I did. And we went that way and did it. When we did the introductions, and my panel, he said, we'll start down at that end. And my first thought was, who am I? So you're right. When they start with it, so when they start with it, you're absolutely right. That's just
okay. Maybe you should sit in the middle somewhere. It's like a roller coaster. Pick an end. Yeah. But so I didn't really have any time to think about it. I went with writer. I think don't get me wrong, I think he's an amazing showrunner, but I think when he's got the show running responsibilities, he's got so much other stuff on his plate, which he loves. Moffat thrives on that stuff. But I think when he's able to just sit down and all he has to do is write an episode, that's the job. Write a good episode. I think he comes to it a little bit better. What's interesting is the fanboys, we both said the same thing. We both said, yeah, better writer. The other two, the industry people, were both, he's a better showrunner than he is a writer because of this, and this. And she brought up some very valid points. I thought that, the showrunner's job is to put out a good product, to increase your viewership, to expand and get bigger budgets to tell bigger stories. Moffat's done that. He just down the line, boom, boom, boom. It's like, I can't argue with that. He's done,
Yeah, and this is kind of my understanding, because I started watching the show in 2010, and that's when Moffat was writing. But I started with Eccleston and all that. But I mean, it doesn't really seem like Doctor Who was around, especially in the United States, very much until 2010, until Moffat was kind of, and like now you've got BBC America doing all what they're doing in space and all this other stuff. So it kind of seems like, and a lot of people are coming to Doctor Who with Matt Smith and Stephen Moffat. So I think, in that sense, I can definitely see where they're coming from, that he's a better showrunner, because, and at the same time, Russell T Davies, he had a different job to do. He had a job of bringing the show back. Yeah. And they had to start, in Britain, and, with the fan base that was already there, and, these are the people who grew up with it, and now they want to introduce their kids to it, and that kind of thing. So he had so I think it's a different job. Each step along the way.
It certainly has.
Well, it's for the same reason that I think, our generation remembers Tom Baker being, the height of Doctor Who. I don't know how much of it you can really attribute to Tom Baker or Philip Hinchcliffe or
Mary Latz
or Bob
J&T.
or any of those necessarily people that were involved in it, because it just happened to be that was the time when Lionheart, which was the name of the company that was BBC in America, started distributing it over here. Mm-hmm. So that's when it really got that exposure. I think had it gotten that exposure with with William Hartnell. Maybe it would have been much bigger over here from the get-go. If it had gotten that exposure with John Pertwee, maybe it would have. So it's kind of that lightning rod effect.
Yeah.
That you just happen to have the perfect storm of this conflux of the great show writer, the great doctor, the great this, and then the marketing arm is in full swing where you get that going. And we talked about this once, that Doctor Who right now is kind of on the biggest cusp it's been since Baker. And I think it's eclipsed that far and away by now.
Absolutely.
But it's just, I don't know how much of that you can necessarily attribute to so-and-so. But the flip side is also true. There were so many other factors at work during John Nathan Turner's era to bring the show down and get it off the air. But he takes the brunt for a lot of that. It's just kind of like, it's like a football coach. You have a good season, you get all the praise. You have a bad season, you get all the blame. So
Now, I know this is your panel, you went and talked on it, but there were a couple of comments that I just visibly rolled my eyes. I don't know if you saw me down there.
Did you see the ones I was rolling my eyes on?
Yeah. Okay. And now that I just want to take this opportunity because I'm here. I got the microphone in front of me. I'm probably going to piss some people off, but I don't care. If it's okay with you guys.
Take it.
Take it. I'm taking it. Okay. People who get so mad about how Moffat writes his female characters, and he's sexist, and he's misogynist, and all this other stuff. Okay. I'm taking it because I'm female, because some people, they dismiss it when a guy talks about it. I do not have a problem with the way Moffat writes his female characters. I don't have a problem. This is what I have a problem with. I have a problem with people who say, you got to write your female characters this way because they're female. You have to treat them special. You have to treat them different than the other characters because they're female. They need special preferential treatment. We have to make them, big and strong and tough, and we can't, you can't have a mom, you can't have a sister, you can't have a wife because that's just demeaning. And I'm like, it drives me crazy. And I'm like, can't you treat Amy Pond as a person, as an individual, someone who has had a life? She's growing up, and she has an imaginary friend, and she grows up, and she has to go to these psychiatrists and because her parents or whatever, and then she grows up and finds her imaginary friend. It has nothing to do with being female, okay? She's just a person. And I'm going off on all this because it just drives me crazy. Drives me crazy when they all say, Moffat's such a misogynist pig because he puts her in these short skirts and makes her, the greatest thing is being a mother and a wife. And I'm just like, get over it. Honestly. Because that's the life she's chosen. She can make her own decisions. She can make her own choices just because they're not the ones you would have picked. So
I think it's interesting because they're
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
First of all,
Now take a breath.
Take a breath. I told you I get mad about this, and I get mad when they all say, well, like with you guys, when you say that, and they're like, well, people are like, or not just you guys, there's other people that get about this too, like, well, you can't say that because you're a man and you're this. And I'm just like, enough with that. Please, just done.
Mel's sitting here nodding her head too.
Yeah, Mel.
No, not at all. And the lady on the panel justifiably said, she says, I don't think he's sexist because of the fact that the female characters in his stories have a role, they have a plot, they have story, they have background, and they don't put up with this.
Yeah.
They give the doctor, the doctor his own.
Yeah, they do. And it's not just Amy that they carp about. It's, the mom in Dr. Widow in the Wardrobe, and it's, Abigail, that she's just the pretty lady who sings. And I'm like, they have more personality than that. And I think Moffat, with his characters, I think he's more interested in telling a story than he is in investing in his characters. And the same thing with Rory and some of the other male characters is that too. And he's more, and not that he's not interested in developing characters, but I think he's more interested in developing story, whereas RTD was more interested in developing characters, whether they're male, female, whatever. And then the story came after. So I think that kind of contrasts with that.
It's really an interesting flip because throughout the Russell T Davies era, the stories with the companions were very family orientated.
Yeah.
Rose had her family. We had to keep coming back to Earth because we've got Jackie and eventually Pete and Mickey, and we've got that support group for Rose. Martha, we get introduced to her family and her sister and everything in the first episode. Donna, we get introduced to Grandpa Wilf before we get introduced to anybody else. I mean, we didn't know that at the time, but
Yeah.
So each one of the companions throughout RTD's era has their own support group that we come to know. And then Moffat takes over, and we get a different kind of setup. We get Amy, who doesn't have that. She doesn't have that support group. She doesn't have that family.
Well, you don't see your parents till the end of season 5.
Now, we find out through the course of these events that, yes, in fact, she does have that, but because of these, events, that they're not there now. What I think is really interesting is that all of RTD's era is about the companions and their families and how their lives are uprooted by the arrival of the Doctor, or the interference of the Doctor. The Moffat era has been about the Doctor being in search of a family. It's almost like he was influenced by all this stuff that he's kind of like, I'd like to have that.
Yeah.
And doesn't. And he finds it through Amy and Rory. And so it's a complete flip. Now, the one area that I will give these people a little bit of credence in is River. I still don't think we've gotten and this is something we didn't talk about on the panel, because everybody kept saying, we'll get to River, and then we never did. I would like to see a little bit more on River, because I feel the season 6 arc of her story and figuring out who she is, to me, still doesn't feel finished.
Right.
It very much feels like we just ran out of time. So this is all you're going to get on it. I don't like the fact that we kind of left it with her being a psychopath. And it's a great joke. It's a great one-liner that she herself has brought up, that, well, there's only room for one of us in the TARDIS with these personalities and whatnot. But I can understand why people get a little harpy about that of all the people, this would be the one that they would kind of go off on. So,
Well, I feel like we just got an extension of today's panel, so now I feel like we've been there.
Well, now, what were you doing while we were doing this?
That's an interesting question, because I went to where everybody else at this convention.
Well, see,
but
people
now I feel
miss-
like I've been on your panel.
You've been on the panel now.
So people that missed the panel because they were at what Glenn's going to talk about, now they feel like they've been there. So there.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up by talking about what I think was one of the most interesting things at the Doctor Who convention. No offense. Gallifrey.
You got to talk about that one afterwards.
Oh, yeah, well, quickly, we'll touch on that as well, because that was phenomenal. I went to see Sylvester McCoy do his Q&A session, and moderated by Nicholas Briggs and Barnaby Edwards. Edwards, yes. Which was fantastic. But those guys had very little to do with it, because Sylvester McCoy immediately takes the microphone, hops down off the stage, and I've seen him do this in other conventions and video, and goes all over the audience from one end to the other, holding the mic out, letting people ask questions, and the man is incredible. He went all over, and he's so funny and witty, and they had... I wish I could remember some. It's all muddled in my brain now, but I wish I could remember some of the great questions. But one of the things I thought was interesting was one girl said, "Can I ask 3 questions?" And he said, "Well, okay." And so her first question was, when in Doctor Who the movie, when you were transforming into the 8th Doctor, did you do? Was that all your face, or was that they do that in special effects? And he says, "Oh no, that was all my face." And he said, "I went," and he did this wonderful thing where he was like making it look like he was doing the transformation thing, which was absolutely hilarious. But the second question that cued me into, this might be the same girl as last year. She goes, "And I notice Eric Roberts isn't here. Is he dressing for the occasion?" And of course, the entire room explodes in laughter. And Sylvester McCoy looks at her and goes, "I don't think I got that," because he wasn't here. He wasn't there last year. And so, of course, nobody will explain. And then the third thing she said is, "Can I have a hug?" And so she gave him a hug, and that was really neat. He was so personable. He went up, he answered all his questions. Little kids would come up. One kid asked, I was so amazed with these kids in this room. What was your favorite book when you were growing up? I mean, they're asking him all these really questions, not personal, but things that you don't think about as an adult, because we're all going, fanboy, we're going to ask you about this. And, of course, just, what was your favorite book growing up? He talked about reading Mark Twain and how he loved it. And one kid asked him what was his favorite thing to do when he was a kid. And he talked about climbing up in a willow tree, because he loved to climb trees. And he had this one willow tree that had knots in it that you could climb up, and you could actually, look down. He said, "I'd read books up there and look." So it was such an interesting thing. And the man...
Those are the stories that you don't get.
Exactly. You don't get those at conventions. And it was so much fun that he involved everybody. And... One kid asked it was a younger girl, asked if she could have a picture, and he says, "But if I did that, everybody here would want a picture." But then he ended up giving her a picture. So he was very personal, ran all over the room. And Nicholas Briggs and Barnaby Edwards, they really just kind of lost control of the whole thing. But the funny thing was, every once in a while they'd reel him back in, and Sylvester would remember why he was there. And he'd go, "Are there any big Finnish questions?" And so they would, every once in a while reel in and ask a few big Finnish questions. But, I mean, he covered everything from doing The Hobbit, from some of the other projects he'd done before. He actually, Nicholas Briggs actually set him up with this one, is I guess apparently he is the first, I'm going to say this word, this isn't bad, he is the first person to break the penis barrier. Because Nicholas Briggs brought up the fact that there was a stage play that he did, and he actually came out nude on stage, completely stark naked on stage. And of course, he says, "Oh, you would have to bring that up." But so he explained it that he was doing this thing where because he's a circus performer, kind of a magician type thing, escape artist. He's got a gig that he did back in the day, and apparently he used to They would bound him up, and he would have to escape from all of these chains and straitjacket and everything. And he would come out, and when he was done, he would come out. He'd be in his skivvies. Well, he thought back in the '60s, that was the thing, is when you were on stage, you kind of came out naked, and it was a free thing, and they hadn't really done it in the UK yet. And so this time when he came out, he was stark naked. and so he apparently holds the record for breaking the penis barrier in the UK. He also talked about Doctor Who, when they shot, he said, "We've shot twice, we've shot... and I can't remember, there's some sandy hot area that's a quarry, and they've only shot there twice, and one of them was Greatest Show in the Galaxy, and the other one was Survival. They shot some of the scenes in Survival." And he talked about one of the Catgirl extras, how he said it was just so hot there, and he said, "I'm in a jumper, and I'm sweating, and it's terrible, and there's all these gals in there in their cat makeup, and they're just sweltering hot." He said there was this one girl, and she tore all of her makeup off her face, and she tore all of her clothes off all the way down, and she ran off over a dune, and we never saw from her again. He said, but really, what was really cool about that is she didn't realize when she was done, she was only in a thong. And so he tells this story. So then he goes on and he's answer a question. And a lady stands up and says, "What was your favorite moment in
Survival?
In shooting Doctor Who the whole time that you're Doctor?" And he goes, "I already told you. It was the gal in the thong." So it was little things like that. It was so much fun. And to wrap it up real quick, the other thing that they did...
On. Now, what did you say to me? You got that. Now, he's trying very hard. This is awesome, and I'm very envious. He's trying very hard not to rub this in, but he comes and meets us after the panel, and he's like, "I tried to record some of it. I got 15 minutes. My battery died, blah, blah, blah. Dude, you should have been there. It was awesome. McCoy was phenomenal. I'm not going to rub it in, but..."
He's now possibly my favorite Doctor. I so much more have an appreciation for Sylvester McCoy just because of the person he is now. The personality that he has, and the way he comes across to you. He is a wonderful man, and he's a consummate performer. I mean, that's what he's doing, is he's there entertaining, and it's obvious that he enjoys what he's doing, and it's obvious that he enjoys the fans. And that impressed me most about
the movie
Sylvester
that you were
McCoy.
talking about, Survival, we watched the extras, and it's so funny because... I don't know, they were trying to get a scene together or something in the extra, and Sylvester McCoy starts jumping up and down and screaming on set.
He was... It's the scene where all the chaos erupts and everything's going nuts.
Yeah,
and
we did. I watched that too.
He's yelling at people. He's like, "Will you stop with the... You're exciting." And it's supposed to be this big kind of comedic moment with all the just...
Everybody running in its chaos, yeah.
Well, he took it one step further, and he takes off the coat, he throws it on the ground, and he throws the hat down, and he's stomping up and down, just throwing a tantrum. Just throwing an absolute temper tantrum on this.
And
but it's not real. It's all him performing.
It's all part of the gag for him. And that's one of those things. I don't know how I knew this. I just knew that you watch Sylvester McCoy, and he's one of those what you see is what you get.
Yes.
This is this guy.
Yes.
I don't know how I knew that. I just knew that. And as soon as I saw him in the hallway and got that, Sylvester McCoy's over there, I don't know why. Now that you've seen it, I don't think you'll be able to ever watch another Sylvester McCoy story without cueing into that. And that's when I say Sylvester McCoy runs a very close second as my favorite Doctor of all time. I think that's why, because for whatever reason, I latched onto that part of that personality through the TV.
It won't matter now how bad the stories are that he's in, because they're still poorly written. I recognize that.
There are. There's some bad
but
ones.
I had already become sort of more appreciative of McCoy just watching the episode, his stories over again. But I will now go to them with more of just a warm feeling for that actor, and because of what he did today. The other thing quickly that they did during this is because Nicholas Briggs and Barnaby Edwards was there, is we got to see, I believe they did this before they posted it on Facebook, I believe we got to be the first to get the
trailer.
Doctor Who trailer, or the Big Finish trailer for, what's the name of the story?
Light at the
The
End.
Light at the End.
The big 50th anniversary.
And
Big
it
Finish
accompanied
story.
with, it's an audio trailer, but it accompanies with clips, and you see the face of each Doctor come up, so you know who's talking. It's clear to those of us that listen to the audios and know distinctly the voices, but it really gave me goosebumps, and I'm very excited.
It is supposed to be all 8.
It's all 8 Doctors,
All 8 original
including
Doctors.
William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, and John Pertwee. Everybody's in there, and I literally every time one of them would speak, it was most of the audio is excuse me, Davison, McCoy, and Colin Baker, because they've been doing this for a long time. Oh, and Paul McGann as well. And I heard some peripheral. Charlie heard. I think I heard Nisa. I heard some of the companions as well, but. It wasn't until because you've never heard this. It wasn't until you heard all these voices talking, and then you heard Tom Baker, and I went, "Oh my God, that's so cool!" Because now it's the 4 of them. It's real. Because even though Tom has done some audios with Big Finish and he's doing stories, this is the first time we're going to hear Tom with all of them, with the exception of Dimension of Time. They're all going to be together, and there's going to be some sort of interaction. And there was only one clip of one of the classic Doctors, and obviously his audio that's pulled from somewhere. There's no way you can do that. But I got that little chill moment too because I heard Patrick Troughton's voice too. So I'm looking so forward to it, and it's going to be so much fun. Really quick, because we've gone really super long here. Let's talk about the last thing we did officially, which was
the classic Companions panel upstairs with Daphne Ashbrook.
All of them were companions except for that.
Well, yeah, Michael Jaston was there. He was the Valeyard. Debbie Watling, Fraser Hines, Peter Purvis, and Mark Strickson.
Daphne Ashbrook.
Yeah, I got Daphne Ashbrook.
You got her.
I said her.
We did her first.
You went. You see,
Yeah.
She went in order.
I didn't. I didn't zone in on.
She is officially now friend of the show, Daphne Ashbrook. So
Yes.
we put her first.
Yes, yes. Well, she was first on the
right
seating.
side.
Yeah, she was on the right side. That was amazing.
It was neat.
That was a really, really neat panel. And I mean, there's a part of me that's like, oh, I want to get up and ask a question, but I couldn't think of anything to say. We were kind of in the back anyway, but
it was just fun to hear the stories.
It was just fun to hear the stories.
It was a lot of fun.
And the one thing I really liked, and I'm partial because they're my 2 favorites, Fraser Hines and Mark Strickson both. We were talking about Big Finish, and they were doing. I mean, because you know their voices now, they're older and all that kind of stuff. But then Fraser starts talking about doing Jamie's voice again, and then he actually does Jamie's voice, and I was like, oh my gosh, yay! And they're how they perform, and Mark Strickson did the same thing with Turlough, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually here. I mean, I know that these guys, it's the characters. I saw their faces. They still pretty much look like themselves, but when you see their voices, they're the characters.
I thought the same thing, and
there they are.
You get a little bit of a chill because it's like, wow, that was.
And they're just
it's like you finally see
that. You see it.
Even the one lady that Victoria,
Deborah Watling,
she even mentioned. She said, hers was like 14 years later or something when she went back and did an audio venture for.
She talked about Downtime, which is actually a movie that she did. That's what she was talking about. Yeah, in fact, because she asked if we had seen that, and then they clued me in, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! Oh, Downtime. That's the one with I think the Briggs in that.
Caroline John.
Okay. Is that what she's talking about?
Yeah. So that's what she's talking about. Is going back. They did ask about Big Finish, and then she talked about that.
But she was talking about doing Victoria's voice, and she said she was amazing how she was able to find her again and bring her out
right
and
away.
Just fell right into step with her.
Yeah.
So,
although I did think it was funny because she said. And he called I can't remember the producer's name, called her up and asked her if she wanted to do that. And she said, yeah, oh, absolutely, I'd love to do that. But, where does this pick up? And he says, well, you're going to play Victoria. And she said, I remembered I had left like 14 years ago, and when Victoria left, she was like 19 years old.
Yeah.
So he said, I don't know how you're going to do this, but you're going to have to light it differently or put us in
She
the dark.
says, you're going to have to put me in the dark.
In the dark,
really
yeah.
dark.
And
Yeah.
so then she says that's why her scenes end up in like an underground area or a
Yeah.
tunnel or
She
whatever. I can't
ended
remember what
up
she
in
said.
the sewer.
The
Yeah.
sewer, that's right. She said because they cleverly did that. So
Yeah.
she's not the age she was when she left.
So
but
those,
none of
those
those actors were.
when you get that phone call, you have to say, "Yeah, but you're going to have to, you're going to have to film me at the Ritz Carlton. You're going to have to film
There
me,
you go.
because producers apparently listen.
Apparently
to you.
they listen.
Apparently
yeah.
do.
Okay.
Yeah, but the best. Well, the whole thing was just great. But I think the best part, and kind of the most heartwarming part, was at the end when whoever it was asked the question. How do you feel that seeing the reception that Doctor Who's getting now compared to when you guys were, and then and Daphne Ashbrook was great, and she gave her answer, and she was saying, he's like, you know what, I don't have to explain to people who I am now, because before when it was just the movie, she had to explain to people what Doctor Who was and things like that, but just all of them, they went down the way and said, you know what, it's the fans that brought it back, and it's and the fans, like, because you guys still loved it and all this stuff, and like even to me, someone who came to it a lot later, I'm like, I get goosebumps when I hear something like that because
they recognize the fans and they appreciate it.
Yes.
I think that's the most important thing.
And the greatest thing, and I kind of got a little teary-eyed, not teary-eyed, but misty at the end when we're all applauding and it's over, and all the fans stood up and gave him a standing ovation because God knows they deserve it.
They made the
Yeah.
comment about they did not expect to see that many people when they announced you're opposite Freema, because Freema was in.
Oh yeah, they had
A.
Freema.
Yes.
So I'm sure her room was packed, but
Yeah.
then our room was
Yeah.
very nearly packed.
Nearly,
for,
yeah.
for
Yeah,
two
nearly
people.
filled. It really
That's
was.
the other big one.
Yeah. Well then, in the panel, and then the stars up there at the stage, like the fans are all standing up, giving a big standing ovation,
Huge
cheering,
ovation.
whooping, whatever, and then they stand up and applaud us. And that was just like crowning moment of heartwarming right there. It's
Yeah.
like we all.
I got misty at that
was so
moment,
neat.
and I was kind of holding it in just because it was such a shared warmth
Yeah.
that was going on. And I made the mistake
Mm-hmm.
of looking at Deborah Watling, who was like that. She had her hands over her mouth and was visibly tearing up, and I had to look away. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I could not look at her.
And then I just remember because then after that we went to dinner, went to Subway, which is another funny story, but not there. But anyway, but I still had on my Fifth Doctor costume through this whole thing, and so we walked down to Subway and we're getting our food and going through, and I'm going to pay, and there's a guy, he was like a pilot in the airport, he's got his uniform on, and he looks at me and he's like, I got a question for you, and I'm like, yeah, because I think oh my gosh, I'm in this I'm in this get up, and he's going to think whatever. He's
you're
like,
in LA. So.
yeah, well, and he's like, is there a schism between? Well, he was saying like there's like a difference between Trekkers and Trekkies, and I don't know the difference because I don't know Star Trek. But he's like, is there kind of a divide the way there is with Star Trek or with Trekkers and Trekkies between fans of New Who and Classic Who?
Wow.
He asked me that question, and like, you know what? I honestly don't think so because, I came to the show through New Who, and I'm dressed up as the Fifth Doctor, and I've been telling people like Peter Davison is my Doctor, hands down. I mean, I love the new series. That's where I cut my teeth, and I got it, and I love it. But then I went back and did Classic Who, and I kind of feel like I feel like I've been with the show for so long, even though I really haven't. But I don't think that there is that divide. Now, some people may enjoy New Who more than they like, or they don't even give Classic Who a fair shake, or vice versa, whatever. But I don't think there is that, and I think that panel kind of proved that. And so it was just interesting that guy asked. I got that question after I just come out of that panel too.
Yeah. That's from presumably somebody that wasn't even at the convention. That's kind of neat. So
yeah, and. I mean, it looked like he just got off work from, flying from...
Was it the guys that walked down to the hotel in front of us? And
No. He was a pilot. He was a pilot.
there was two pilots that passed us.
Oh, no, it wasn't those guys. He was an
okay.
older guy. No, yeah, he was... And it was like when I was paying for my food. And and I was like, that was an interesting question. And he was saying, like, oh, yeah, I'm just watching the new series. And
Well, when I was standing in line for Freema for an hour and 15 minutes, you have nothing better to do to talk to people. And there was a guy that was behind me who was waiting in line, and we got to talk, and he said that he had, and him and his wife had actually gone to Star Trek conventions, and got introduced to this convention, And he says after coming to a Gallifrey convention, he'll never go to another Star Trek convention again. He said the difference between the people attending this kind of convention, the Gallifrey convention, is so much homier, so much personable, and the guest and everything. There's no difference between who they are and who we are versus a Star Trek convention.
I think a part of that, first of all, part of that is Galley, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of part of that, too, is it is the fans who kept this show alive, who kept the flames burning, who come to Gallifrey year after year after year during the wilderness years when there wasn't anything going on, who have that such fond appreciation for what Doctor Who is, that I think that kind of is what helped permeates this whole environment. Because you and I felt it when we came last year. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter. I mean, there was a little bit, specifically at LobbyCon, that we were kind of odd men out because we didn't have a click.
Unfamiliar with it.
But it was just because we were unfamiliar with it. But that's really the only place that you get that. Everything else is just people are warm and friendly, and you're Who fans, so you're fans. What Chip said in opening ceremonies, this is your con, this is your Gallifrey, this is your home. Yeah. And so that's just kind of the whole thing. But,
all right. Well,
I think that's going to do it for us.
That's going to do it for this update, and we went a little long. So until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Mel.
I'm Chrissy.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone.
Toodaloo.
Be seeing ya.
Oh,
you can't do that.
Keith's not here. Someone has to do it. I don't have one.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.